A woman was about to give birth, but dared not make a single sound. What was even stranger was that there were several American soldiers with guns guarding her side. They had been very careful, yet they still alarmed the horde of zombies outside. Several soldiers fired frantically at the zombie horde, and could they break through the siege after all? 19 years had passed since the outbreak of the zombie virus. Most people had mutated into zombies. Human society had long since lost all sense of order. Those who had survived by luck were divided into several factions. In the doomsday, human hearts were unpredictable. A group of villains banded together to become raiders. They burned, killed and looted, committing all manner of evils, and were even more terrifying than zombies. Some others set up survivor bases. They pooled their resources to get by and were fairly united, and the rest were lone survivors. Carter, a veteran, had been fighting alone all along, because he wanted to find his child, who had been taken away right after birth. 19 years ago, Carter's wife was about to give birth. His comrades all raised their guns to stand guard and help keep watch. His wife called out to her husband softly. Carter encouraged her in the softest voice. The moment the child was born, the wife couldn't hold back a scream. Everyone was so scared that their breath caught. Just then, Mike, who was in charge of delivering the baby, wrapped the child up. The wife asked to hold the baby, but a terrifying roar suddenly came from outside. A horde of zombies charged madly at them. Mike told Carter to run fast, but Carter insisted on taking his wife no matter what. After begging Mike to take good care of his child, Carter helped his wife get out of bed. He knew he could never run fast with a woman who had just given birth. Mike steeled his heart and ran off with the baby first. After he left, Carter and the others got ready to fight and retreat at the same time. It's just that there were far too many zombies. His friends could barely hold them off. In the melee, Carter's wife was pounced on by a zombie. Although Carter fired his gun the moment he could, he still couldn't stop the tragedy from happening. Seeing that the main artery in his wife's body was bleeding profusely, Carter told her to press down on the wound at once. Then he dragged her into the next room. After closing the door, he wanted to say something more to his wife, but she was already dead. Carter broke down and cried, holding his wife's body tightly in his arms. In the more than 10 years that followed, Carter never forgot to look for his child. He didn't even know if the baby was a boy or a girl, yet he still never gave up the search. Every time he could barely keep going, he would think of his beloved wife. She used to play the guitar and sing. When she saw him coming, she would take the initiative to hand him the guitar to play, and his wife would snuggle up beside him and listen in rapture. That happy time made Carter cherish the memory deeply. It sustained him through years of living alone, but now he was truly tired. He thought the child might have long since passed away, so he had the thought of going to reunite with his wife. He took out his revolver with only one bullet left, wanting to see if God really wanted to take him away. After pulling the trigger, the gun didn't fire. It seemed he had to keep living. He walked alone on the street in a bad mood, passing through the desolate, empty blocks, and came to a wasteland strewn with airplane wreckage. As he walked, Carter suddenly stopped, feeling the breath of danger. He was so scared that he didn't dare to breathe, but the zombies behind him still spotted him. Carter quickly hid behind the airplane wreckage. Knowing that zombies had low intelligence, he picked up a glass bottle and threw it far away. Hearing the sound, the zombies turned around without hesitation and charged forward. Carter took the chance and slipped away. After returning to his residence, he placed the 3 cans of expired canned food he had just found today on the table, then lit a cigarette to calm his anxious mood. Even after finishing the cigarette, his sorrow still lingered. He picked up the guitar that his wife had loved the most during her lifetime. He was just about to play a tune, when suddenly he heard the sound of the doorknob being twisted at the door. Carter looked warily at the door, confirming that someone was about to come in. He quickly grabbed a weapon and found a place to stand guard. Before long, a young girl stuck her head in. She had no idea if the owner of the house was good or bad, but she had to take a chance. After closing the door thoughtfully, she tried to go inside to find the house owner. She had only taken a few steps when she was met with Carter's gun muzzle. The girl was so scared that she raised her hands quickly, knowing she was in the wrong. She dared not say a word. Carter accused her sharply of being a thief, trying to sneak in to steal things in the dead of night. The girl answered in the negative, and said she had no weapons on her, and posed no threat at all. Carter was kind-hearted at heart after all. Seeing that the girl must have been starving, he invited her to taste the canned food. he had just found together. The girl really hadn't eaten for a long time. She pounced on the canned food and ate ravenously. During this time, Carter sat opposite her and watched quietly. The girl felt a little uncomfortable being stared at. She took the initiative to introduce herself as Daisy. Then she looked at the person opposite. With an expectant look on her face, Carter told her his name truthfully. Daisy asked the question that had been bothering her: why he lived alone in such a desolate place. It seemed that no other humans lived in this place. Carter replied in his usual cold tone that it was safer this way. Daisy knew she had asked enough questions. Carter thought it was necessary for him to ask a few questions too, like where Daisy had come from. Zombies were running amok outside. How a naive young girl had managed to survive until now. Daisy said she was from a survivor base in the north. In order to search for more supplies, she and several other young people were sent out to look around everywhere. They usually only wandered around the base, but this time the search range was wider and much farther from the base. It wasn't long before they met a gang of robbers, the raiders. The male companions were killed. The females were forced to go back to their lair to serve the raiders. Daisy and her companion found a chance to escape, but her companion was caught before they ran far. She knew turning back would change nothing, so she kept running hard forward, and finally managed to get rid of the raiders chasing her. Carter felt great sympathy for her ordeal. When Daisy checked the map and asked where they were now, he patiently helped point out their location. Daisy pointed at the base, but she had no intention of trekking back the same way, because there was a rule at the base: if those who went out to look for food failed to return in time, a truck would be sent to a designated location to pick them up. She found the pickup location on the map. Carter exclaimed that it was also very far away. It would take at least 2 days to walk there. The road ahead was very dangerous, with both zombies and raiders. He thought Daisy could never make it there alive on her own. Daisy knew this well, so she wanted to ask Carter to escort her. There were medicines, food and weapons on the truck. The round trip would only take 4 days, and Carter could get all these precious things. Carter thought carefully for a moment and finally refused. Daisy didn't want to give up and continued to persuade him, saying the truck would only stay for 5 days. She had already missed 2 days. If she couldn't get there within 3 days, she would be completely homeless. Carter still didn't want to meddle in other people's business. He allowed Daisy to stay at his house for the night. The girl turned and left helplessly, and the reason why Carter made such a choice was that 3 years ago, he had lived with his good friend Shawnee. In order to find Mike, who had taken his child away, Carter hoped to go further away to search, but Shawnee flatly refused to go, and even scolded Carter for only thinking about himself and ignoring others. Shawnee had a son. He was unwilling to take the little one out on an adventure, and it was impossible to leave him at home alone. Carter planned to go out alone, but Shawnee was even more unhappy. They had worked together for so many years, and had always taken turns going out to look for food. If Carter left just like this, no one would be at home to look after the child when he went out to find food in the future. In the end, Carter still left without the slightest hesitation. He sincerely hoped to reunite with his only relative in the world. Now, Daisy woke up from her sleep. After walking out of the room, she found Carter playing the guitar. The beautiful and melodious sound of the guitar was delightful. In the doomsday, many humans clinging to life have no right to enjoy such moments. At this moment, Carter saw that she was awake, and immediately took out a map to cover his face. Daisy thought the man was really hard-hearted, and dejectedly started to pack her things to leave. Unexpectedly, Carter said he would set off with her. Daisy broke into a sweet smile. When everything was packed and ready, the two walked towards the direction of the truck. On the way, Daisy asked Carter if he had made a plan. She thought he was a careful man with rich experience in surviving the doomsday, and would never act aimlessly when going out. Carter replied that he had indeed already made a plan. They would take a short break at a place on the way, and buy some weapons for self-defense from a merchant. Daisy was confused and asked if they didn't have a gun, the one that had been pressed against her forehead last night. Carter said calmly that it was just a means to scare people. The bullets for that gun had run out a long time ago. Daisy set her eyes on the revolver. Carter stroked it gently.
Only got 1 round.
After walking for a while, the two came to a house. Carter wasn't sure if the merchant was still alive, so he called out his name. Daisy didn't follow him in, but played with a wooden bird outside. Toys were also rare things in the doomsday. She was playing happily, when the sound of a horse neighing suddenly came from ahead. Daisy looked in the direction of the sound, and saw a spirited old man riding a horse. This man was the merchant Carter had mentioned. The two were old acquaintances. The merchant asked Carter if he was going to set off again, and why he had a girl with him this time. Carter perfunctorily answered a few words. Daisy, on the side, was amused by it all. Now the zombie virus was raging. Animals that were alive and not infected were few and far between, yet the merchant owned such a precious blood horse. Was this the benefit of being an arms dealer? While Daisy was playing with the pony excitedly, the merchant and Carter went into the house to talk in private. When asked why he was escorting a stranger, Carter's answer was for peace of mind, since time waits for no one. Carter and Daisy had to cross the valley to reach the pickup point. This meant they would have to face the terrifying raiders. They needed weapons for self-defense if they wanted to stay alive. Carter asked for a gun and bullets. The merchant wanted to know what he would get in return. In the doomsday, money is just worthless paper. Material food and spiritual food are the real hard currency. Carter handed over his beloved guitar. The merchant exclaimed that he hadn't seen such a well-preserved item in a long time. He agreed to the deal. When Carter went to choose a gun, he found a few yellowed and dusty old newspapers. The contents said that in 2026, the plague spread at a very rapid pace. The situation seemed to be a little out of control. The president declared a state of emergency in New York. These were all old events from more than a decade ago. Carter didn't pay much attention to them. He told Daisy to come inside and pick a handy gun. Daisy felt a deep sense of guilt about trading the precious guitar for weapons. She apologized sincerely, then went to the table and picked up a pistol. After tucking the gun into her waistband, she curiously opened a tattered wallet and found a photo taken by the sea inside. She said enviously that she had never seen the sea, and wondered if Carter had. Carter thought for a moment and said the sea was really beautiful. Then the two continued their journey. As darkness fell, Carter thought they had to find a place to set up camp. That night, the two lit a fire in an abandoned house to keep warm. Daisy still felt overwhelmed with guilt.
I wish I didn't need help. Makes me feel pathetic.
Daisy hated her own cowardice. The girl taken away by the raiders was her best friend, but she could do nothing about it. After feeling sad for a while, Daisy wondered why there was only one bullet in the revolver. Carter said that people always have moments of helplessness. This bullet could decide his own fate. The next day, the two packed up their things and continued on their way. On the way, Daisy saw a sign, which read, "They abandoned us and left us to fend for ourselves." Daisy wondered who it was complaining about. Carter replied it was the government. The plague first broke out in the United States. It could be controlled at first, but then it spread from person to person frantically. It wasn't long before the situation became unmanageable. The CDC researched the plague and concluded it was a hybrid virus of accelerated dementia and highly aggressive rabies, so the experts had been busy developing a vaccine. During this time, society was in complete chaos. Many people chose to hide at home and not go out, narrowly escaping the zombies, only to be robbed by other survivors. A few years later, the CDC developed a vaccine. The government announced on the radio that it would airdrop supplies. But by then, very few humans were left and they were scattered far and wide. The government's supply coverage was very limited. Gradually, many people became completely disappointed with the government.
Hope's a dangerous thing. Give it to people, take it away again, they'll break.
Daisy asked if the vaccine still existed now, and if there was still hope for humanity. Carter said calmly that it was meaningless. It wasn't long before the two walked into the raiders' territory. They saw these ruthless robbers committing all kinds of evils. Daisy wanted to avenge her dead friend. This terrified Carter. There was a huge disparity in numbers between the two sides. They couldn't meddle in other people's business. The best option was to sneak around them. With that, Carter rushed into another house, where innocent people had been tortured to death. Moving on to the next house, Carter saw a small children's shoe lying on the ground. These raiders were truly utterly devoid of conscience. Just then, Daisy was captured. The raiders stared at her fair face, and shouted excitedly that the pretty girl had come back on her own, and ordered someone to drag Daisy into the warehouse. Tom, the leader of the raiders, was stunned for a few seconds at first, but his expression quickly turned lewd. Because he heard there was only one enemy, he immediately told his men to circle around in ambush. If the raiders really attacked, Carter really couldn't hold them off. Luckily, the sound of gunfire attracted the zombies, catching the raiders off guard. Tom flew into a rage and grabbed his gun to settle the score with Carter. At this moment, Carter rushed into the warehouse and saw the raiders about to harm Daisy. When another raider charged at him, the pistol's magazine was already empty. Carter had to kill the enemy with brute force. Luckily, this raider wasn't strong at all. The crisis was temporarily averted. Carter froze in place, motionless, Daisy stepped forward and hugged him tightly. After calming down a little, the two quickly found a bunker to hide in. Tom roared that Carter had killed so many of his men, and dared him to come out and fight one-on-one. As he hurled the threats, Tom kept firing his gun to show off his power, but soon he ran out of bullets. Carter took the chance to rush over and pin him to the ground. He should have killed him with a knife right away, but he didn't do it. This gave Tom a chance to fight back. He threw heavy punches and hammered Carter's face frantically. Daisy saw that the situation was wrong and rushed over to stop him, but her strength was far too weak. Tom stared at the prey that had come to his door and said excitedly that he hadn't seen such a beautiful girl in a long time. He could have another exquisite head ornament by his bed. Taking advantage of his rambling, Daisy bit down on his main artery. Tom stepped back repeatedly in pain. Blood gushed out continuously. He never thought Daisy's bite was even more vicious than a zombie's. His eyes were filled with unwillingness, but he couldn't change his fate of dying. At this moment, Daisy walked over to Carter. After confirming that he was okay, she quickly helped him to sit down and rest nearby. A lot of time had been wasted because of this little episode. The two had to find a place to take shelter for the night. Thinking that Shawnee's house was quite close to the meeting point, Carter wanted to go to his house and ask for shelter. On the way, Daisy fell into deep thought for a long time and asked if Carter was willing to go back to the base with her. Their base was quite big. Carter was willing to think about it. At dusk, the two finally neared Shawnee's house. Before they even got close, Shawnee saw them from the window. A few seconds later, Carter announced his identity and knocked on the door, reminding his friend to put away his gun. Shawnee did open the door, but he hurled a lot of swear words at Carter, blaming him for leaving him heartlessly. Since they parted 3 years ago, Shawnee had been confined to a wheelchair, but he had kept his house in pretty good order. Even the electric lights were still working. The reason was that there was a generator in his basement. Shawnee happened to know how to repair it, but there wasn't much fuel left. He was making an exception today only because he had guests. Seeing that Daisy was quite young, Shawnee even planned to take out his most prized possession, and asked if she liked watching movies. Daisy looked at Carter and only ran to watch after he nodded. After Daisy left, Shawnee complained that he hadn't lived well all these years. He had accidentally slipped while climbing a ladder to repair the house, and his lower body had been completely paralyzed. He wanted to know why Carter had come back this time. Carter said it was just to stay for one night, and he would leave at dawn. Shawnee hated this answer. He resented Carter for abandoning him and his son 3 years ago, which had caused his son's death. Daisy was eavesdropping nearby as he said these words. Shawnee gave him a meaningful look, then said he could stay for the night, but he had to do something for him. His legs were useless now, so he couldn't go to the warehouse to get things. There were wood and tools inside. He hoped Carter could help bring them back, and make a pair of crutches for him. Carter agreed, picked up the flashlight on the table, and was about to head to the warehouse. Daisy wanted to go with him. Carter thought it was safer for her to stay in the house, and said he would be back soon. When there were only the two of them left in the house, Daisy felt very uncomfortable. Shawnee told her to relax and not be afraid. He and Carter had been friends for many years. He had met Carter in the desert 15 years ago. Back then, Carter was arrogant and didn't want to talk to anyone at all. He kept inviting Carter to have a meal together. The starving Carter agreed. Because of that meal, Carter let go of his arrogance and became good friends with him, but everything changed later. Carter had betrayed their friendship. Daisy felt that Shawnee's state was very wrong, and asked what exactly had happened. Shawnee said he had seen through Carter's true nature. Although he seemed kind to everyone, he was actually selfish and would abandon his friends when trouble came. Daisy was a little disbelieving. Shawnee complained that Carter was just very good at pretending. He spoke of his own tragic past. He once had a lovely son, and regarded him as his whole world. But because of Carter's selfish departure, he had lost his whole world. Daisy apologized for reminding Shawnee of these sad things. Shawnee told her she didn't have to apologize. Shawnee ground his teeth the whole time he said these words. Then he actually stood up from the wheelchair, realizing she had been tricked. Daisy was so scared that she didn't dare to breathe. At this moment, Shawnee walked to the door and glanced outside, and said regretfully that he had always wanted a daughter. Daisy quietly took out a dagger from her pocket.
Life doesn't usually work out the way we imagine.
Daisy was still too naive after all. After being disarmed, she launched a surprise attack on Shawnee when he wasn't looking, and then fled in a panic through the house, but she was caught up with before long. Daisy picked up a wine bottle and smashed it on his head. Shawnee was completely enraged. Daisy warned him not to do anything stupid. or Carter would make him pay dearly when he came back. Shawnee wondered what she could possibly do, and said mockingly that Carter would never come back. On the other side, following Shawnee's instructions, Carter arrived at a warehouse dozens of meters from the house. He opened the door and stepped inside, and it was pitch black inside. He searched around inside, only to see a terrifying figure standing ahead. He was so scared that he stepped back quickly and hid in the corner. At this moment, a zombie stuck its head out and said he was starving. Carter recognized the zombie as Shawnee's son, but he didn't realize his old friend intended to feed him to his son. At the same time, Daisy was cornered on the bed. Shawnee wanted her to bear him a child. Daisy cursed him, saying he would surely get his comeuppance. Shawnee didn't care at all. He desperately needed a new spiritual sustenance. But before he could even take off his pants, Carter pushed the door open and walked in. Seeing blood on his face, Shawnee demanded to know if he had killed someone. Carter nodded. Shawnee had thought Carter was dead, but he had narrowly escaped death. He charged at Shawnee with a dagger again. As he tried to lay a hand on Daisy, Shawnee was so angry that he raised the gun to pull the trigger on him. Daisy quickly jumped onto his back, pulled out the dagger and stabbed him frantically. Shawnee hated that Daisy wouldn't obey him. He planned to teach her a good lesson. In the nick of time, Carter used the bullet he had saved for himself. Seeing the crisis was over, Daisy hurried forward to check Carter's injuries. She saw blood gushing from his side, and quickly helped him up to run outside. If they could just get on the truck, the medicine on it should be able to save him. But as they neared the truck, Carter collapsed to the ground feebly and lost consciousness. Daisy shouted for the base members to help, but Carter seemed to be dying. In a daze, he saw his wife appear not far away. Carter thought he had arrived in heaven. The next second, he suddenly woke up from his coma. Seeing Daisy by his side, he knew he was still alive. Daisy heard his voice and opened her eyes quickly. She said sadly that she had thought he would never wake up. Then she told her companions what had happened. They came into the room quickly. Carter froze when he saw who it was, because this man was none other than Mike, who had taken his child away. He had searched painstakingly for years, never expecting to reunite in such a way. Mike said that after fleeing back then, he had thought about going back to look for them, but he didn't dare to gamble with Daisy's life. Carter wanted to know where his child was.
You're a baby girl. We named her Daisy.
Carter was utterly shocked and grateful that he had protected his own daughter. A few days later, the recovered Carter went outside to sunbathe. Daisy sat quietly beside him. When he saw her coming, he took out a necklace and said it was your mother's. She would surely have wanted it to be passed on to her precious daughter. Daisy took the necklace and put it on. Then she took out a new guitar. She thought her father would love this gift. The movie ends here. Like other zombie apocalypse movies, it criticizes the greed and selfishness of human nature. The zombie virus turns the dead into the living dead. But this isn't the most terrifying thing, because the indifference, violence and selfishness of the living caused the collapse of human social order far too quickly. These living people are the real plague that has dragged civilization into hell. If you were in the apocalypse, how would you keep yourself alive until the end? If you like my channel, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe.